move this the wrong way. There you go. When I was invited to speak about my leadership, I started to think, what can I tell you that you won't know if you're all in the leadership world? And then I just thought maybe the best thing to go about it is I tell you the story of how I went into leadership, especially into the role that I am doing right now. So I'm going to go a little bit into the background of how I got into the place where I am now. As Nana has said already, she already gave my background. I was born in Mexico. I did my studies there. At some point, I moved to Europe. I stayed in Europe for about a year. Then I met Jorma Vuotinen. He brought me to Finland. I started to work in the Helsinki City Theatre dance company. And from there, I moved to the Finnish National Ballet, where I worked for 17 years. Along those lines, in the dance career, I became, of course, I was a dancer for the company. I was a teacher, and I was a choreographer. And along the years of my career in dancing, maybe when I was around 40, I started to teach international. I met someone that pulled me very much into dance research. So I did about 10 years of dance research. I worked with this person. She's a doctor, a very famous doctor in Germany. And that also led me to do that. As I stopped dancing in 2008, I started to work more and more internationally. I was asked to do some choreographies for big ballets. I did Sleeping Beauty for the Finnish National Ballet, Beauty and the Beast, La Bayadère, so big productions internationally. At around 2013, I moved to Paris, where I lived for about 9 years, and I just continued doing my career as a dance teacher and as a choreographer. And then finally, in 2021, I found out that the position for director in the company, the Finnish National Ballet, was open again. I never imagined myself in that leadership position because I find myself a creative person. So I was very involved with creation, like I needed to do something that was very, very creative. And for me, leadership was something that was very administrative. And it also had a lot of weight on human resources management, which I knew how to do because when you're a choreographer, you have to manage sometimes 60 people. But I imagined that I would go to another level of management that I probably was not very interested in doing, like solving office problems or meetings or things like that. So I had applied before for the position of the Finnish National Ballet director. That was maybe 6-7 years ago, and it didn't work. And when I look at the past, I realized I really wasn't ready. I really actually didn't want to come. I just felt that it was like the normal step in my career to do. And I was just taking it, but without wanting. So luckily, I was not taken. And it was actually very logical because I was not even ready. When I applied in 2021, I knew in my heart that this was now the right moment. I knew in my heart that it was the right moment because I had understood that leadership could be a creative act. I had been involved very long time in with the directors of the Finnish National Ballet. I had been able to speak about them very much. And then I started to understand that everything that I had done in life had given me the tools to go into the leadership and make it a work of art. At the time that I was chosen, I didn't really understand this. It was very intuitive, but I felt that I was going to the right position. So basically, I was elected kind of in a not really a mysterious way. I think Gita Kadambi, which is the general director of the opera, which is the one that made the final choice, based her selection of me as a director in everything that I did during those 10 interviews that I had to do. There were interviews, there were psychological tests. By the end, I was naked. There was not even the leave. They knew everything about me. But when I look at the choice, it was in a way a risky choice because I didn't have a formation as a leader. I never went to university. Everything that I had put on the table was that I had learned from life. I didn't have any major studies. I didn't, anything on that. So I felt very lucky and fortunate, but at the same time, I felt very powerful because I thought, if they've chosen me, they believe I can do it. And I do believe I can do it. So I started from there. This is what I was kind of given when I started to do, well, in the last task that I was given before I was actually selected. This is what the description of my job would be. And just so that you know, I am directly the director. So I have about 90 people under me directly, which is something very rare in leadership. Leaders normally have 5, and then from there, they go down. In my position, and up until now, I have 86 dancers, plus all the people that you see here. These people are taken care of by the artistic administrator, but at some point I also have to kind of take a hand. But these people are directly under me. So I started to think, how am I going to do this? Because I don't know so much about this. And of course, they said, don't worry, we will help you. We will have all the support. The artistic administrator is someone that I know extremely well because we danced together. So he had done a natural transition to administration 10 years ago or even more. So I knew that I was going to have a very big backup. But then I started to think, okay, how am I going to do this? And the first thing that came to my mind is look at the people I had worked with in leadership. So I started to look closely at those leaders that I had had. And I thought, okay, a leader should probably dress in a certain way. So I started to kind of work on my identity as a director even before I went into the direction, because I thought when I arrive, I should be prepared onto what I want to do. So I actually went shopping, and I went, which I didn't do before. For 10 years, I didn't shop. I just, used my normal clothes. And so I started to understand just by that simple act of shopping, how important it is to understand that everything we do projects something about who we are. And what we are will irradiate in the environment that you are. So actually the way you dress really does matter, because it starts to kind of create an image of where you want to lead the place where you're going to be leading. So I bought me beautiful trousers. I even bought ties. I had not worn ties, but I thought, okay, if you go to a leadership, you're going to have to wear ties to go to the meetings or to go to certain events. So I bought ties, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And then even before I started in the position, I started to have interviews, and I knew that what was expected of me was a change. This was very, very clear. The ballet at that moment was having a very difficult situation. The atmosphere was not very good in the ballet. So basically what was put in the table without being said directly is, we need you to change this. We need you to bring here a better atmosphere of work. Just as a background, after I was selected officially, the ballet actually, those 76 dancers voted 51% against me. So it was a terrible thing for me to start as a leader, knowing that half of the group was against me. Had it been 60, Gita would have said, sorry, you can't make it. But because it was like 51%, she said, okay, let's investigate what it was. It was basically that maybe 10 years ago, I probably addressed myself to some people in the wrong way, in a really literally inappropriate way, like do your job and maybe angry. And that had kind of created traces. So there was a lot of fear around me coming and just becoming this monster of, you're going to do your job and things like that. So I had to take the decision at some point, and Gita took the decision, do I go for it or not? And then I just had to look into my heart, and I said, yes, I can do it. I can do it. I'm not the same person. It's been 10 years or even 20 years since I was in that position. So I decided to change. So I asked Gita, what are my resources to do this change that you want? And they said, well, you have everything that the past directors have. What do you want to do? So one of the first things that I decided was to bring emotional awareness into the groups. So I got Ben Not Nature, that some of you probably know. Ben came. That was the first thing that I said. I brought a special Gestalt therapist to work with the whole group in 3 sessions during the year. And then I brought also Ben Not Nature to work with every group. So he worked with the dancers, with the ballet masters. Everybody developed a common language of communication. For instance, focusing on that is something that Ben gave us, and it stayed in the company. But it was not done so that it was like, I'll just concentrate on the ballet masters. I knew that in order to make the change, I needed to go through the corridors and say, did you focus today on your little sign to everybody? And then that was the only way that we could really create a common language. And the best thing I could do that was by getting people that would help from the external point of view and give them some tools to do that, because then I could refer. It was also a way to say, I am not the one and only that is going to give you the information. There's other people that can help me in the task. And it was a way for me to gain the trust, because it was not me telling the truth about the life. It was somebody else telling them, we're giving you tools to work together, which was the thing. I think that's maybe what I understood in the beginning, and how I threw myself into the leadership. I think it was then a month a month after that, or maybe even before, just as I started, that I decided that I was going to do contracts with people. I have been taking therapy for a long time. I have friends that are therapists, and in one of my meetings with Gita, almost in the beginning of the leadership, I spoke to her about, should we make an agreement of what you expect on me and what I expect on you, not necessarily on numbers or on performances, but on what do you expect as values? Because our institution, as the opera, has our 4 values, which are creativity, appreciation, respect, and openness. But I thought with one-on-one contracts, it could be a little bit easier to relate to things later. It's like going into marriage. I was going into a marriage with a lot of people, so I wanted to this marriage to be as clear as possible. So I actually did contracts with everybody. So I would send to Gita, for instance, I sent to Gita, I expect from you trust, openness, support. Let's say I started with this. I think I had a list of 5. And then I said, I'd like to know if you accept these terms from my side and what do you expect from me. And we actually made deals. So she would send me back her part of the contract saying, I also accept the trust, I also accept the honesty, the openness, and I want fidelity from you. For instance, she would add in the thing. And these contracts were in paper and they were done with every department. So I did a contract with the whole group of 74 dancers, and they needed to get together and get their contract together, send it to me, and I sent them my part, and then we agreed on it. So by the time I finished my first month, I had made a contract with marketing, I had made a contract with the general director, with the ballet masters, with the dancers, anyone that, with the producers, anyone that was going to be in contact had to have a paper where it read, you promised me trust and fidelity, and now you're not trusting me. Because then it was very easy when we jump into problems where there was someone where they felt that I was not supporting them, that they said, hey, but we agreed this in the beginning and I'm not feeling it now. And then I could just say, yes, you're absolutely right. Or I could do it the other way. So it kind of created this safe ground of, we know what we expect of each other. And I think that started to change the atmosphere very quickly because we all felt in a safe ground. Then as I started to come, I think I remember I stuck to my clothes for about a month. So I was like with the tie, and I was, and I would get up every morning and I would iron and I would do this. And I knew that it was important, but I think like maybe after a month, I started to feel it's just not all the way me. It's me because I've chosen these clothes and because I love doing the effort for the people, but there's something missing. And at some point, what happened was that we were going through a hall in some place, and there were the new skirts for the ushers that were going to be taking care of the opera. And the administrator and I said, oh, those skirts are wonderful. I said, yes, I'd like to get one of those. I said, yeah, I'd like to get one of those. And so the joke became a little bit longer. I said, maybe I'm going to wear a skirt. And it actually took me 1.5 years to wear the skirt, because then I needed to kind of question what kind of director I am again. I had started with suit, with trousers and this. And by the time I wore the skirt, which was for my 60th birthday, it had been a whole year. And one of the questions that my administrator said, or the administrator of the company said, was like, is it really you? And then the question arose, like, is it really me? Is it me when I step every day there, or am I pretending to be a director? And I realized there was a bit of pretension. There was a bit of, I learned that I have to behave in this way. So if I do this, it will give this result. But it did give a result, but I still felt a little bit trapped, and I didn't feel that I was going very far into redesigning the direction. So it started with little details, not that I completely changed, because I still love the ties and the trousers. But then after 1.5 years, I actually spoke to the marketing director, and I said, well, I'm planning to use a skirt, and I want to know if that would damage our image, because I am also a public figure. And what happened was, like, in the beginning of the 2 months of working before even the skirt, is that I started to understand that every institution has frames. And when we come to an institution, we kind of have to abide to these frames, that this is the way, these are the walls, and this is the values that we have. So in the Finnish National Opera and Ballet, we have these 4 values that for me are like the core of our soul, if I would say so. And then I knew what I was going to be responsible. So I needed to take care of human resource management, planning, programming, teaching, coaching. I knew this from the tasks that I had seen before. And in the beginning, I did this in a very traditional way. We did performances, I went and I sat there. We did meetings and I sat there. And almost in the beginning, I started to think, but this is not changing anything. And it's kind of boring and it's not me. So I started to change everything in very little details. My meetings always start the way we start. And this immediately brought a sense of warmth to the team. I had a big problem with the team being very, very dispersed and with very big conflicts. But just these 30 seconds of doing this started to make people talk. And so by the time we started our meeting, people had already acknowledged they were sitting with someone they knew. I didn't make friends immediately, but the connection started to develop. Then I just give you some examples because I think examples are practical as to how simple things can really change something. In the opera house, we have, there is this one moment at 1:30 and 1:45 and 5:45, where the stage manager would say, this is your 30-minute call, your 30-minute call, dancers. And maybe in the very beginning, I said, it would be lovely if the director would say something. So I was afraid to go there because this is like the official time for the stage manager to call the attention. So I went and I said, I want to wish you a wonderful evening. This is Javier Torres, the director of the ballet orchestra. It's a pleasure to have you, producers, technicians. You're treasurable for us. Have a great show. And it immediately brought a different sense to the ballet. But what was wonderful is that a year later, when it became a tradition that I would do this whenever I would be in the house, then we started to work with the opera. We had a co-production with the opera, and I actually had not really spoken very much with the opera singers or orchestra, although I meet them every day. But because our worlds are so different and I'm running, I never meet them. So we had a production where in the Requiem, where we had the choir and the orchestra. And then I started to do the same thing because I didn't change my ways of doing it. And the magic came because then they started to come to me on the canteen or on the restaurant to say, those announcements are just so great. We just feel like we're appreciated and that we're loved and that somebody cares for you. And I never imagined that something so simple could bring such a background. And now, which is now almost a year and a half or almost 2 years, I start to know people and call them by their names. And the way they say good morning is not good morning. It's like, hello, how are you? Or Javier, it's nice to see you. Sometimes I don't even know really their names, but they know who I am. So it's these little changes can do a lot. Another thing that was really great is that when I started, you remember I wanted to have my beautiful suit and everything. So when I started to come to the opera, I have worked in the ateliers of the opera years. I actually had a seamstress that taught me how to do dresses. So I actually can do wedding dresses and all those things. And I learned thanks to the people in the opera. So when I first arrived, I thought they had the best irons in the world. It's just fantastic. These irons are just wonderful. I love them. And then I thought a director cannot iron in front of the other people because a director is a director, right? And I thought, I should arrive glamorous to the ateliers and say, hello, welcome, and But I didn't have the time. And then one day I was running and I said, what the hell? They've seen me do this so often. So I just went down and I started to iron my suit. And somebody made the joke, oh, the director is now an iron worker. And I said, well, actually, I have been an iron worker for many years. It's just that, and I realized in that moment how important it was for those ateliers to see me iron. And that was the last day I ever ironed in my house. So now in the morning, I went and I ironed. And some, like for instance, now I have wonderful people that say, do you need help with the iron? Because it's very difficult to do it like this. So it's like little details like that have changed the atmosphere. Another example that I have about how I lead performances is I don't actually change the performances because if it's one leg, it's one leg. But we had Nutcracker last season. And then I thought, okay, how can I make an impact? How can the Finnish National Ballet make an impact on this audience? That year, we were having the 20th anniversary of the Nutcracker. So at the end of that day that the Nutcracker became 20 years, I came with a microphone. I said, why don't we all sing Happy Birthday to the Nutcracker to make some impression in those children that are there, that it was not just a show, we became a group. So of course, everybody sang and it was a huge success. And I think those things are exactly the way you can change the leadership, just by taking a little detour into one end or the other. And what I feel now after a year and a half is that the creativity is larger, the respect is larger, the appreciation and the openness is wider. And it hasn't taken a huge economical effort. Actually not. I made a wonderful collaboration with Amos Rex. So now Amos Rex comes and sees us to our general rehearsals. If you want this kind of collaboration, we can do it. And then the whole company goes to Amos Rex to see the exhibitions once a year, and then we go to the cinema. So things like that are just basically collaborations between other artists or between the artists of the house have really changed the atmosphere in the thing. Now I am going to go into what I think are elements to help the creativity. You probably know a lot of things because you've been around the world of culture, and we all need this kind of elements. But we all start by imagining things, and that's why imagination or dreams are so important. Once we've imagined it, one part that we tend to forget is the word. We need to say it out loud. I am going to create a work of art, because word is the first input of energy into the universe to say, I am going to do it. And finally, of course, we need to take the action. We need to actually start to create the work of art. They're very concrete examples, but when I came to my office, it was the office of the past director. It was extremely cluttered and filled with post-its, and it was a place where you felt, I don't belong here. When you stepped into this office, I felt like, oh God, I really have to get out of here, because I'm disturbing all these papers and these things like that. So when I first came, before I even started to get to the office, I said, well, this is not an inviting environment. And as a director, I want people to feel comfortable in my office. That's the first thing. If I want to create an atmosphere of love and welcomeness, I need to have that in my office, not just cluttered. So I did the whole renovation because everybody was in holidays, and I had to find a way to get the paperwork that I needed and at the same time have this atmosphere. So somebody came up with this idea of, why don't you put a curtain? And so now when people come in and I have a meeting, I just cover all the papers that I need. There's nothing ever in my desk. And the people just go like, wow, this is such a wonderful place. And just that has changed the way people to talk to me. So they sit, they feel comfortable. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to make them understand that now it's over, you have to go, because it's so comfortable that they want to stay there. But there's always a time, there's always a moment to say, you know, I really need to go to another meeting. But it's so important how people feel when you're around them. It's really, really an incredible part of our jobs as leaders. How do they feel when they're around me? Are they afraid of me? Are they comfortable? And I think the more comfortable, the more creative they can be. So I encourage you, never start imagining, what can I do to change this? And then say it out loud, and then just take an action. And eventually it really works really well. Another thing that I find it's really important for us leaders is that we never lose the love for learning. I think we start to go wrong when we start to think, I made it, I know it, you know, oh, this is something I can handle. Yes, we should be able to handle problems. Absolutely. We are paid to handle problems and to solve problems and to develop solutions. But the more we love learning, the faster we can make the change into anything we do, if we decide to do it. It doesn't mean we have to do it, but yeah, we should be. And I just put this, the love for learning, I just actually was looking, what can I put that will be a good image? And I even found that there's an application for leaders. Isn't it fantastic? You can just go to the application. Last week, I needed to finish, we have a program for protecting the whole, the institution from the, how do you call, internet attacks or what is it? It's not, well, you understand what I mean, you know, that we don't get attacked or robbed the information from the Microsoft or things like that. And we have this thing called Cyber Coach, and it took me 4 hours to answer these questions. And in the beginning, because I'm not very much into applications or things like that, I was like, oh, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this if I need to do so many other things? And the moment I started to do this, there was this click in my mind that if you do it with this attitude of, you know, why do I have to do it? It's going to take longer, and you're going to miss the learning, because you're eventually going to be doing the task with not wanting to do it, and you're going to miss whatever you could learn. So as I said, everything we do, everything, being sitting here, it's a learning experience, but we need to trigger the mental state of saying, I am learning. we walk on the street, we are learning. Everything we do, we're learning. Sometimes it can be in an unconscious level, sometimes it can be in a very conscious level, but just saying the phrase, I am learning, I am constantly learning, triggers you to be in the position of actually learn. I also think that it's really important to be curious. It's sad when people lose their curiosity. It's again this kind of attitude that I know it, why should I even try it? And I was looking for the animals that would be the most curious. Actually, the first one is a parrot that loves to open nuts. But then I found it was a bit aggressive, because once he gets the nut, he will not let go of the nut. And if you have a nut, he can attack you to get the nut. But what he loves is how to open it. But then I found that ants are the second most curious animal so far I found out. They have a great smell, so they can find food anywhere they go. And what is great about ants is that when they have a problem, they turn to the group. So they never solve a problem alone. They always solve it if there's something too heavy, they're going to call the others to help to carry the fruit or to open the space where they are. And I think as leaders, this is one of the key points. We should always think that our team is there as part of the creative process that we're doing. I'll speak a little bit more about that. We doing okay? Okay, now I'm going to speak about the toolboxes that we all have in our lives, and I'll explain what is toolboxes. Basically, a toolbox, or what I call a toolbox, is that what you know how to do. And what you know, when I sent my application for the direction, this is what they got, right? With a very beautiful letter saying that I would love to be the director of this. But this was the opening state of basically what I sent to them was the toolbox that I've gathered through the years. So I've given these courses, so he must know something about teaching. I've been in dance research, so he must know about the dance. He's been choreographer, so they knew more or less the tools that I manage within the field of dance. And the whole of the interviews were very much based into what do I know either for leadership. So this also spoke about leadership. If I was directing a group of 60 people, they understood that I knew. But it was all focused on the world of dance because I was going to lead a ballet company. However, many, many years ago, I understood that when one presents itself, you can present yourself as the future leader of the Finnish National Ballet, but you have so many more tools in life, and it's very important not to forget that we can use all the tools. This is actually all the toolboxes that I have as Javier Torres López, and these are all the toolboxes that I use every day in my direction. I don't use only the choreography, which I probably need to use. So when I was a child, let's start from here. Part of my toolbox is what my mom and my dad taught me. My values from Mexico, those are in my toolbox, you know, the jokes that I make, how my father loved solving problems, how adventurous he was. That's part of my toolbox. I know I can take an adventure and I will manage it. This came from my dad, and my mom was a very creative person. At a very early age, I had a very difficult childhood, so I myself found therapy. So I've been doing therapy, I don't know, you name it, maybe 20 years, 30 years, and I still have a therapist. So I have a toolbox filled of everything that I've learned through therapy. My Mexican background, it's not the same as the Finnish background. So my humor, for instance, is just something that I can't stop having, and I actually like it. And when I enhance that in my meetings, it changes the meetings. If I'm able to come and say a joke, it's not the same if I just come, let's deal with the problems. So that's something that I'm filled with tools just from my background, and I really carry them. At some point, and actually I do a lot of meditation, I did a 5-element cooking course, which also helps me very much because there's a logic in cooking that we can use in a logic in a meeting. A meeting can be like cooking. Do you put the oil before you start putting the eggs and scramble them? I did meditation. I did Reiki. So I know what is the importance of touch, the energy that happens when you touch someone. I've done 3 or 4 huge renovations in my life. I am filled with tools of what is the process to build the wall or not to build the wall, what will happen. And that seems very simple, but when you start to do a renovation, if you throw a wall down without having prepared something will fall. So these are things that happen exactly when we are working in leadership. If you don't think, what are the problems that I can have by doing that, you don't solve them before it's too late, something has fallen. Pandemic taught me how to use Photoshop, GarageBand, Final Cut. So if I need to do a film, if the marketing department is stuck and they send me a picture, I can't do the picture. I sang in the choir for 8 years, and then I had a Finnish band here. So I was singing for 20 years, boleros from Mexico. I've done sculpture, I've done sewing, and I've done painting. And this sounds like me, myself, and I, but that's not important. Is that everything that I've learned, just like everything you've learned, everything, whatever you have, they are toolboxes that you can use in your leadership. And sometimes we forget that, oh, I learned that in this. I was one time having a very difficult situation with a person on stage who had a panic attack. And I was standing there, and the performance was in the middle, and I knew this was going to come because I had a feeling that this can happen. So I didn't go to sit on the audience. I was standing on the side, waiting for this person to either have or not have the attack, right? And then at some point the person came like, I just can't. I really can't do it. And there's the stress. You have 2 minutes because the orchestra is still playing, and you have 2 minutes, and then how can I help this person? You can't push him and say, you can destroy this person psychologically. So the only thing I thought is, yeah, I've done it. So I took off my coat, I put it in his mouth, and I said, scream into the coat. So everybody heard on the audience and said, not so loud, But it was something I learned in therapy. This is the best way to just release the stress very quickly. Had I had a little bit more time, I would have taken him to the toilet and make it even louder. And eventually he got a little bit calm. He didn't do that section because he said, it's just, I feel better, but I still can't go on stage. So we had already the plan B. Someone went and helped and did that thing. And in that moment, when I felt that this man had collapsed and think, I'm not going to make it, I'm just never going to make it, I just grabbed him and said, you didn't do that section, but you can finish it. So I literally said, you can, and then it just went like, yes, I can. And then he went into and he finished. So those are things that, had I not been in therapy, I wouldn't have been able to manage, And I think you don't need to go to therapy, but everything you do when you comfort a friend, that is a learning experience. How do I comfort this friend without building rather than destructing? So I encourage you to look into your toolboxes, because sometimes we forget we have so many toolboxes, and use them in your leadership. Another thing that has been fantastic for the creativity process is solving problems. Some people approach like, oh God, another problem. But if you immediately you think, of course, when you get a problem and you don't need it, you go like, oh God, another problem. But when you immediately think, okay, I know I can come with a solution because I have so many toolboxes and I've done it before. Then you you click in your mind, okay, this is another challenge. It's just another puzzle. It's really literally another puzzle. And what is beautiful, I learned from one of these Buddhist masters. I still have time, right? When I learned one of these Buddhist masters, she said, every problem has over 2,000 solutions. When you come up with 2, you're rich. And it's really truth. There's always different ways of coming with solutions. And what I liked about this image is that this is the way one can solve problems. One can solve it in a very, how would you say, not disorganized, but in a very light manner or in a very structured manner. So there's always different ways to solve a problem as long as you stay within the frames of what you're doing. I have two experiences that I want to share with you, because I think they also relate to the elasticity and taking decisions. When I came to the ballet, things in the ballet are done in a very orderly way. You decide you're going to have a cast of people that are going to do these 10 shows, and then you're going to have a group of people that will cover in case someone is sick. So I took this pattern because it works. It's a pattern that works really well. And I had just started maybe 2 months within the direction. And we had a ballet that was done for 14 people, and we had 6 people covering. So in case somebody was sick, these people would jump in. And the rehearsal director that came from London came furious to me, and she said, this is just not fair. The people that are doing the cover work are working just as much as the people that are doing the performance work. And I said, yes, I understand, I agree, it's like that, but this is the way we do it, because we don't have so much time to change the people and things like that. Yes, but this is artistically not right, because this, it's humanly, they're doing the same work. And I said, yes. And then it was the first decision I took as a director. I said, I'm sorry, this is the way it works, because otherwise I'm going to have a revolution. So she left very, very angry. And I went home and I said, I felt terrible. I felt terrible because she really had a point. She really had a point, and up until then, I had not had to face a problem like that. So then I came back. I went in the evening and I said, there must be a problem. There must be another solution. There must be. So in the morning, mornings are great for me. That's when everything comes to my mind. I decided that I would actually call the 14 people and I would make kind of a lottery to solve the problem. So what I said, I actually spoke to Gita, and I said, I'm planning to do this. What do you think? And then she said, are you crazy? Where do you come from these ideas? I said, well, I just came up with this idea. Do you think? And then she said, is there something that can come and bite you later? So is there something that can go really, really wrong? And I said, no, I don't see it. Okay, so the idea was I would call the 14 people to my office, not the covers. The covers would be out of the process. I would cover the 14 people to my office, and let's say that I had 6 people that were covering, and I was going to ask from the 14 if 7 of them would be able to give 2 shows from their shows. So they would just give them generously so that the covers could do it. But since it was a very risky, tricky position, because they could have thought that if they didn't give their shows, I would take it personally and say, you're not generous enough, I'm going to punish you. I needed to do it in a discreet way so that the people wouldn't really know who were giving the shows. We would just find out in the end. So I organized this lottery in which first of all, I called them and I said, the plan is that you're going to write in the paper your name. We're going to fold it. So this was your name. We're going to fold it. You're going to put yes or no. We're going to fold it again. And then we're going to put it in a place. Do you accept if we get 7 people? If we get 7 people to accept to give 2 shows, then there will always be 1 mystery people. Are you following me? We needed 6, right? We needed 6 people because there were 6 covers. So if we get 7, the last paper will not be open and it could be anyone else. That means that everybody was generous. Are you following me? Is it too confusing? Are you following more or less? No, not really. So I needed 6 people, right? But if I open the 6 people and I have the papers of the 6 people, of the names of the 6 people, then I would know who in the group was the generous people and who were not the generous people. But if there were 7 and the last paper was not open, that was the mystery and it could be any of the others. So they would know that I could not take it against any of them because there would be always a mystery paper. So I needed 7. So I went to they all agreed. They were like, this is absolutely not traditional. Some people were like, well, I don't know. This is the way the company works. As you know, I'm not asking you to say that it's right or wrong. If you don't agree, we just to stop the process and we all go home because nobody knows that I'm trying this crazy thing. Not even the covers, not even no one knew, just you and of course my director. So they all said, yes, okay, let's do it. So then we did this. I didn't even touch the paper so that they didn't think that I was doing anything. There was the assistant that did everything. And in the end, we ended up with 6 papers. So I said, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because there's only 6 papers. And if I open, you will all think that I start to look down on you because you didn't give your shows. It's over. And then they said, okay. And just before they went out, someone said, but I really want to give my shows. I really want to give my shows because I respect this woman that is doing her job so well, the cover. And I said, yes, well, I'm sorry. It's very nice for you to say, but a deal is a deal. And then the other one said, but I really want to give my shows. And the other one said, and then finally, after 4 had said that I really want to give my show, and the fear left that I would judge them in any way, one said, guys, we know each other for 15 years. I think it's time we could be open. I don't want to give my shows. This is the one thing that I'm going to dance in there. And suddenly they all said, I don't either, but I do. And then I understood that they trusted me because they knew that, and what was beautiful about it is that finally all the covers danced. I had to make it very clear that this is once in a lifetime occasion because I couldn't do this when there's 15 people or 60 people, right? I said, this is once, but the piece was very special for them. It was a very special piece from a choreographer from London. And what was wonderful is that when they left, that group that came in as 14 dances, or I think it was 14 dances, went out like a family. And when they did these performances, it was amazing to see this sisterhood because they were only women. So sometimes finding the solution might take a lot of thinking, but it's really worth it, because what you get from the new solution is not only a new solution, it's your brain working better, but you might get so many advantages from working from the way the people react to the new solution. Yeah, the €2 is another funny story, but I think I still have one moment. I just some months ago, I had the problem that we have some parking places, and then the one of the persons that had these parking places had to give it out because he was not working longer for the institution. And we were like, oh my God, if he doesn't come anymore because of the parking place we're in the... So we all went into what are we going to do to negotiate that he gets the parking place? And then finally, after 2 weeks of trying to think, how do we speak to the HR so that he gives him back the parking place, I just came up with the idea, if we raise his salary for €10, he can pay the parking place, and it was solved. And he was very happy with the lift. So it was a very simple solution. I didn't have to deal anymore with HR, and he was very happy. So sometimes it takes 2 weeks, but then you come with the right solution. Then another thing that it's really important, I think, for all of us is training our intuition. Intuition in our society, we're very much brought up to reasoning as the way of solving problems. This is not quite the way that I work. And in the beginning, when I was interviewed, I remember in the exams that I came, that I gave to the psychologist that was interviewing, it came immediately that you're a very intuitive person. And I almost felt that it was sensed like something negative, like, you know, he can't really explain. And it's true, many times when people are very intuitive, they can't explain right away, but it should be really written big, because normally later we can think, oh, now I understand why I did the decision. If I go a little bit onto the way, actually this is something I just tapped into the internet, and I Googled intuition and conscious listening, and this came out, and I found it really beautiful, because of course conscious reasoning is very important. This is what we learn in life. But the way that I've always approached intuition is the voice of the soul. So it works through a connection with collective mind. Collective mind in quantum science, it's defined as the fact that we are connected one to it. There's an energy that connects us. So this invisible energy that connects us also. We all are in a way one. It's a very difficult concept to explain in short words, but quantum science is really going to how can we prove things like soul or collective mind, which are not really palpable. And what I find is, if you think that collective mind is the information that we all have from our history as human beings, from our private history, and we can connect in a level, you know, it can be sometimes through a smell, through a sensation, through an energy. I can access your information, or I can access the information that it's out there. And that information is like kind of freely coming to me if I learn to trust that what I'm feeling is that. Sometimes it's the ego. So it's a complete different thing, you know, and finding the difference and tuning the difference is, but we normally know when it's intuition, and we normally know when we're trying to manipulate the situation. And if we don't, we can train to learn that. I think that's one of the things that we can train to do. So on the other hand, when we work with conscious reasoning, we're basically basing decisions on what comes from the data that we have in our heads. And the problem with having data in our heads is there's not a problem with that, it's great to have it, is that data is always fallible. It's like 2 and 2 are 4, but 3 and 1 are 4, but then you can go into really little portions and make the 4 happen. And we will normally go to 2 plus 2. That is the way we're going to kind of reason. So information in the brain doesn't calculate things that are not accidents. It doesn't calculate, it's accurate to a level, but there comes a level where there will be something that we didn't count on. If you say, well, if I leave at 8:30 and I take the taxi, this is rational thinking. Well, then it could be another rational thinking to think, well, I have to be prepared for something that it's not going to go right. That would also be rational thinking. But there's something that slows us down when we're only rational, because we're only gathering this and this and this when there is all this to make this decision. I had a very tough period last year because my assistant left. and I had to recruit a new. This is kind of my way of working with intuition. My assistant left, so this is my past assistant, and I have the permission to use this picture. I love this picture. So and I got a new assistant, and the new assistant that I got, she came, and for the selection of this, I had maybe 3 people that I had to interview because it was a very tight schedule, and the other person that was not the assistant that I have right now was someone that was extremely close to me in the way I did things and in the way that we thought. We had the same sense of humor and like that. So when I finished the 3 interviews, the first one of them was immediately out. We think, no, she's not going to work for us. But then there were these other 2, and the choice was very difficult because she was not really that close to the way I am as the other one. So everybody thought, oh, he's going to go for that other one, you know, the one that it was just like a team, like that. And I went home and I had this uncomfortable feeling because I also thought, yeah, it's normal, you know, it's going to be like that. And I had this I couldn't know. And then when I came up in the morning, I just said, I'm going for the other one. I was like, are you sure? I know it sounds completely, but the reason tells me that this one is very good, but there's something that tells me that and then finally I got her. I think I can say her name because she's wonderful, Foluso. And then as it turned out, we found out later that other assistant was a very problematic person, actually. So it would have been really difficult for me to work because after we just found out by, you know, connections that the person was a difficult person. And what then I realized, what had attracted me so much is that Foluso was almost the opposite to me, but that balanced my energy. Because when I came in the morning, it was not like, because I am like that. So Foluso was like, okay, you need that, okay. Remember, you need to go and eat. And then I would just go out, you know. And I was like, oh, thank God I heard my intuition, because had I not heard my intuition, I would have just heard my reason saying, yes, of course, this is the perfect person. She's just like me. So I do encourage you to train it. You can't train it. You can train it by starting to think. I gave this example to someone the other day. Sometimes we're going somewhere and then we say, okay, the application says that I go straight and then I to the right and then I go to the left, and we're walking with the application like this. And then there's a moment in this walk that you turn and there's this incredibly beautiful light in a street that you're not meant to take. And it's just so beautiful. And there's something in the end that is so gorgeous. You know, there's a church or something that happens many times in Paris. You go like, wow. And you feel this need. I have to go and see this closer. This light is amazing. But no, the appointment is in 10 minutes and I should go to the next block to the right and the next. And then what happens is that you say, oh, what the hell? I'm just going to see this. And I'm going to make it. I'm just going to run. And then you walk. And the person you were going to meet there is walking this way. And this is exactly what intuition is all about. It's just telling you, just take and go and look that, because you never know if it's going to be a shortcut to where we're going. And sometimes we forget that shortcut. We just think it's the application that will take me, or this is going to give me that result. This is exactly what I meant about the mind. You know, we being calculate. Now we're going forward, not backwards. There we go. I spoke a little bit about how important it is to have your team on board and really think of them as co-creators. When I started my leadership a year and a half ago, I have a beautiful apartment, and one of the things that I don't know where it came from, I thought it would be wonderful to paint my leadership through the years. So I myself created a huge canvas. It must be like 2.5 by, it's the one big wall that I have. 2.5 by 1.5 or something. It's a very large painting. And from the almost day zero, I invited either people that were very close to me, like either friends, or then people that really work with me to come and do 3 lines. So this is where my art of work is up until yesterday. This is all the people that have come to me, and these are people that collaborate with me. She works in the costume department, she's a ballet master, she's the general director, and she is a friend of mine. And what is great about this painting, and this is exactly what I love about the leadership, because now I understand that it's actually a work of art, because I do it every day. It's not, a single day will not be the same, and because there will always be problems to solve, there's always something that I can grow into, is that sometimes this painting has this incredible balance of colors. I just go home and I say, wow, it's so beautiful. And then comes this person and does 3 lines or 3 expressions, and the balance is lost. And this is a direction. You get up in the morning and you don't know how that's going to be with 74 people. You're going to go here or there. And the beauty about it is that you have to adapt your perception to how is the leadership looking now, because it can change tomorrow. Appreciate it, value it, treasure it, and then take it on from there. And what I have experienced is that just by having not having them here, for them it was very important. Some of them said, I've never put a trace in my life, so it was very important. But the fact that when I get home, I know that I'm not alone, has created this hermetic, or not even hermetic, like incredible net of very strong teamwork. So I never feel alone. When I have very, very big problems, I never feel now I can't do it. There will be always something. Another thing that I've learned that was from a really great workshop that I took of leadership in dance was that the decisions many times are ours as leaders, because that's our responsibility, and we're paid to take decisions. And it is very important that the group knows that it's our decisions, because sometimes it can be confused. If it's a group decision, then it needs to be said, we're all going to vote and we're going to do like that. However, even if it's our decision, that doesn't mean you can't listen to everybody. And you can't really make even a group decision before taking your decision. So you can say, let's vote on the problem. They all say, we should do it like this. And then in the end, if intuition says, yes, but it just doesn't work, or you see other problems, you can always decide that you can go other ways. And then another thing that is very important, and as I learned from another workshop, is that when having a conversation with someone, listening 80%, it's a key to learning about these people and also learning how to solve problems. Many times leaders, we stand and we speak for an hour and a half, and we miss the lesson by not listening the 80%. And when you're giving a feedback discussion, or you want to solve a problem with somebody, the 80% of listening, it's what brings the good decision and the good solutions. So and then, well, I think this you probably all know, creating from the point of love and not from the point of fear. The ballet world has been led for centuries through fear, because it came from the royalty, so we did everything that the king wanted, and we bowed to the king. And so for centuries, dancers have bowed to teachers, have bowed to choreographers, and have bowed to directors. And the problem with leading that way is that you're going to have fear in the process, and fear always blocks people. You're not going to really inspire people. You're going to manipulate people. You're going to develop unhealthy competitivity, which I had a lot of that, blockages and isolation between the teams and the people, lack of trust and the blockage. And when you create through love, then you have joy in the process, which is much more easier to create. Development, personal and group development, collaboration, openness, trust and inspiration, and so many other things that are not even in the list. It's just like things. But remembering that this really helps in creating your team a better team. Yeah, whenever you can sleep on it, I think you all probably know that these hasty decisions are not the best ones, and sleeping on things helps you solve problems. You probably know that the mind keeps working as we sleep, so we don't really stop working. We work in another level, and many times when we wake up, we know the solution because the mind worked the whole evening or the whole night in that. It also helps us detach from ego. We all have an ego, and thank God for that. The only thing is, when the ego takes the lead, you might fall into really wrong decisions, because you're not anymore talking from the point of love. You're just talking from the point of how can I solve this and win. So when you have a little bit of time, one of the things that I learned in therapy was to develop the me observer. So it's actually, I can look at myself as I'm talking and saying, okay, now I feel very proud to stand here. Javier, you look really proud standing there. That's a great tool to detect an ego attack. But if you can't do it because in some moment somebody comes and attacks you, and your first thing will be, no, it's not going to be like that. That can be solved when you just step back and I said, now I'm about to have an ego attack. the Joe Observer. So, you know, I don't think this is the moment to talk about it. It's very difficult, but it's something that can be trained. And sleeping, even if it's 5 minutes or sometimes I sleep 4 minutes, like I think day before yesterday was but I lay there. This is the couch that is in my office. And this was the one thing that I did when I arrived, was be sure that I had a couch where I fit it perfectly and I felt very comfortable. And then I asked for the opera to buy a couch to all the people that worked for more than 6 or 7 hours a day, which were by ballet masters. So now every office has a couch so that they can all have a 15-minute nap at some time during the day. And then, of course, sleeping on it or even just taking the distance, that minute of peacefulness, helps you take a better perception of the whole thing. You know, if you jump into the conclusions very fast, you might miss something. And last but not least, I would say love the job, not the position. Very often we identify ourselves as directors, and it's okay. But first of all, I am Javier Torres. So when I go into meetings with the dancers, there's always this thing like, oh, but the director is coming. And yes, I am the director. I do take decisions that affect their lives. Absolutely, I do that. But when they come to my office, first I am Javier, who happens to be the director, not the director that will listen to you. And changing that perspective ensures that your feet are well on the ground. I am just in another position, but you're just a human being with the needs that I have as well. So we're going to share our needs. Let's talk, and let me see how I can help as a leader. This was a very beautiful thing that I found he's the director of the technical department downstairs, of the workshops actually, and he has this on his wall, and I found it so very beautiful and inspiring. A leader's only task is to get the others shine. And I think that's it. Thank you.